Rule 6. To others, the intruder will appear as a mannequin, or a rubber dummy, or a coat hanger, etc. Do not let guests near him. What exactly does others mean? Mitch left the diner shortly after his dad showed up, but before he left, I asked him about the so-called other, about why the intruder appeared as a coat rack. He just shrugged. Rules aren't set in stone. Just keep your distance, said Mitch, in regards to his other. He's not what he seems. Meeting with Mitch revealed almost nothing, save for more unsettling questions. Why was his dad still alive? Why was his dad's bike parked in the driveway across the street? Was that even his dad? Was Mitch messing with me? Was the entity messing with both of us? Questions over questions over questions. Rising dread lurked beneath the surface of everything, like reality itself was nothing but a blanket draped over some unspeakable terror, a veil that might be torn away at any minute, any second. Highway 7 was emptier than usual. My blue 1993 Toyota hatchback reverberated with the drones of rubber against the road. A red sun crept down behind distant mountains. Shadows stretched longer as the day crawled westward. Against pastel pink skies, starling flocks moved like a singular hive mind. Driving always calmed me down. Before I owned a car, I used to go for these long, solitary hikes out in the mountain forests. There's something about constant motion, outside, alone and peaceful. I was still committed to the rules, at least until I thought of something better. Regardless, my next priority would be to get somebody over, a guest who actually wanted to stay. Maybe I'd rent out a spare bedroom, maybe I'd call up an old friend. Easier said than done, especially considering the pandemic. Either way, I needed to get a handle on this. Up ahead, parked at the side of the highway, the red Kawasaki motorcycle. I sped past before the image fully registered. Letting off the gas, I checked the rearview mirror. There it was, the red bike, about 200 feet back. I pulled over, looked back over my shoulder. Only the bike was there. Shifting into reverse, I froze. What was I doing? Mitch specifically told me to keep my distance, but my curiosity had other ideas. I breathed in, I exhaled. I shifted back into forward and started out on the empty highway ahead, stretching straight to the horizon. Just go home, I thought. Go home, sleep. But I didn't listen. I shifted back into reverse and moved towards the red Kawasaki. Lurching to a stop about 10 feet away, I stepped outside, squinting as rising plumes of dust stung my eyes. There sat the bike, kickstand out, keys still in the ignition, helmet sat on the driver's seat. I'm no mechanic, but the air smelled like engine trouble. I glanced around. The highway shoulder went out for about 20 feet, then cut down into grassy fields, about 50 feet down. Someone sat down on the edge of a shoulder. Mitch's dad, E.T. Carver. At least that's what I assumed from this distance. He sat with elbows resting on knees, staring off into the field, smoking. I stood there, weighing my options, wanting to leave, but letting my curiosity win out again. I walked over, the smell of gasoline getting stronger with every step. A red jerry can sat on the hard-packed dirt beside him. I stopped about 10 feet away. He glanced over, made eye contact, nodded, and turned back to the view. "Car troubles?" I asked. "Bike troubles." "Anything I can help with?" He shook his head and took a drag off a brown cigarillo, vanilla flavored, judging by the smell. All my questions backed away. Sympathy replaced curiosity. Apparition or not, this man looked broken down, as though his life had been nothing but letdown after letdown after letdown. He studied something out in the distant fields. I turned to see what he was seeing. Nothing, only shimmering wind rippling through the flood grass, the last drips of daylight soaking back into the ground. He pointed. "Off past the boardwalk. he said. "About 200 feet." My eyes followed his directions. Still nothing. "Down, beside the water," he said. And then I saw it. 3 bears. Brown bears. A mother and 2 cubs, drinking from the water. I'd never seen a bear outside of zoos. I didn't even know they lived around here. "Probably came down from the Balry," he continued. "Nothing but clear-cut suburbs out there now." He spat dryly and pressed his heel against the spit and turned his ankle like putting out a cigarette. Just then, the mother bear looked up and glanced around as if she heard something. She held there a couple moments and then went back to drinking. "So, you're friends with my son?" he said, watching the bears all the while. No, not really." "Boyfriend?" "No. Nothing wrong with that. Didn't say there was." He smiled sadly, clenched his eyes shut, and took another long, slow drag of the cigarillo. "Acquaintances," I said. "What's that?" "Acquaintances?" "Sure. People who know each other tangentially." He nodded. "You moved in across the street, yeah?" "Yeah." "Ignore the crazies." "Crazies?" "Neighborhood's full of them," he said. "Crazies catching." "Yeah, I meant to ask about..." He raised a hand. "Not right now," he said. "You come by tomorrow, I'll answer any questions you want about any of that. Just not right now." He motioned towards the horizon, as if it were the only moment of peace he'd seen in years. I nodded. He smiled warmly, took one last drag, and pressed the cigarillo down against the hard-packed dirt beside him, twisting it there until it went cold, wiping ash-stained fingers onto his brown leather jacket. He took a deep breath, exhaled, and pushed up to standing. He produced another cigarillo and offered it to me. I shook my head. "I just quit," I said. He shrugged, lit it up, took a drag, and exhaled more vanilla-flavored smoke. "You know what to do when you run into Baloo?" he said. "Baloo?" He blinked disappointed surprise. "Grizzly, up close." "Throw your hands up, make a lot of noise, yell," he said, half remembering something from grade school. He scoffed. "That's a good way to end up with your head vised between bear jaws." Pulling another drag, he exhaled the smoke out through his nostrils. "You run into one close-up." He paused. "Just talk to her, like you're doing here. Pretend she's an old friend or something. Long time, been a while. Tell her about your day. Ask her how she's been." His cold blue eyes filled with memories, drifting back and forth across the distant horizon as he spoke. "All the while, you keep backing up, slow as you can manage. Not slow like you're trying to leave, slow like... We both happen to be going in the same direction. How about that?" He looked at me directly. "Know the difference?" I nodded. He turned back. 9 times out of 10, if she hasn't outright mauled you already, she'll follow, curious. You just keep backing up, keep talking." His jaw tensed up, then relaxed. "When you've got about 15-20 feet between you, take off your backpack or your hat, whatever." He looked down at the dirt. "Place that on the ground. She'll stop and see what's that. Sniffing, prodding. You back up faster now, but not by much." Again, he looked directly at me. "The trick is to accept the fact that you're scared shitless. Accept that your head's lying to you, begging you to run, whispering every song in the Bible. You can do this, you can fight, you can run." He waved his hand as if to say, "and so on." "But you let that fear take control." He snapped his fingers with surprising loudness. "That's it." He looked away, flicked his cigarillo straight down, stomped it out and spat. "Instead, tell yourself, 'God damn, I'm really scared right now.' You take that and whatever else is on your mind, and you set it aside. Don't push it away, don't forget it, just set it aside and focus on breathing instead. Focus on backing up, 1 foot after another. No shortcuts." He trailed off into silence. Soon enough, she'll lose interest and wander off. He met my eyes again. "Usually. But if Baloo wants a fight, you go for the eyes," he shrugged. "At least you'll go down fighting." A few long seconds passed until I realized he was finished. Thank you," I said, not really sure what else to say. I turned back to the field. The family of bears was gone now. He chuckled softly and stepped back. Look, you have any questions about any of this? Haunting bullshit. He met my eyes. You know where I live, just come over. I nodded, still unsure if he was a puppet, apparition, real, or some combination of the three. I'll just tell you straight up, don't take anything the neighbors say seriously, especially fucking Howie. Sure, I said, turning back from my car. And one more thing. He squat down, picked up the red jerry can and shook it. Empty. The nearest gas pump was about 3 miles out. I brought the jerry can back full, and we drove home in the same direction. Despite my reservations, I liked P.T. He reminded me of my old man. Rest in peace. Still, I didn't know who to believe, and I couldn't shake the way his eyes moved outside the diner, like somebody had crawled into his mind and taken a quick look around. Maybe I was paranoid, maybe I was seeing things, but no amount of paranoia explained the coat rack in the basement, which, first thing tomorrow morning, is what I meant to ask him about. I pulled up into my driveway and sat there a good moment before stepping out. Orange streetlights bounced over wet asphalt. A small grey dot of a cat or raccoon shimmied down a neighbor's fence and slinked across the fresh-cut lawn. The house across the street was dark, and the driveway was empty. No red bike. Maybe a PT took a different route back. I stepped inside and pulled the door shut behind me. When I saw the basement door, the weight of everything suddenly came crashing back. The building dread of my bizarre predicament. The door was shut, yet almost pleading with me to open it, slightly begging me to check and see if the coat rack was still there, see how much further along it was. Turning away, I went for the kitchen, but I stopped in the living room and looked back over my shoulder. Fuck it, may as well get this over with. I spun around, marched over, yanked the door open and flicked on the light, taking a deep, slow breath. I stepped forward one step at a time, and my foot slipped. I tripped forward 7 quick steps and tumbled over head first into the corner. Throbbing pain shot up my left leg. My shin was snapped, turned left at a sickening 90-degree angle. The bone inside pushed up against my skin like a swollen cyst. I almost puked at the sight. Fuck! I hissed, gritting my teeth and pushing back into the corner as the long dark hallway stretched out before me. I couldn't stand, I couldn't even reach the second light, I couldn't think. Thankfully, I was in too much shock to fully appreciate the rising pain. For now. I clenched my eyes shut, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Adrenaline pushed me into a strange state of calm. I opened my eyes. Everything was slightly brighter now. My vision was adjusting, but the hallway was still clouded by shadow. I pulled out my phone, turned up the screen to maximum brightness, and shone it down into the hallway. The coat rack was still there, but closer now. About 5 feet closer, I guessed. And now, a heavy wool coat hung from its top. So much for 1 step a week. Tucking my phone away, I looked up towards the exit. Time to go. Carefully shifting my body weight to avoid more pain, I turned over. A tedious process. I couldn't afford paramedics or an ambulance, so I'd had to crawl up the stairs and call a taxi. Besides, no way I was waiting down here with only the coat rack to keep me company. Why is being poor so expensive? A solitary drop of water fell somewhere in the darkness. I slowly turned to look. The coat rack's dim silhouette stood motionless. Fuck this. I was about to turn away, but something moved. Behind the coat rack, barely visible, something rose to standing. I only saw the shadow outline of a person, with the faintest hint of pinkish red skin. Like the skin of a dying pig, I froze, paralyzed. My eyes adjusted bit by bit. Seconds dragged by like minutes. Suddenly, the wool coat shook as 2 gaunt yet unnaturally large hands emerged from the dark and wrapped around the coat rack, gripping tight. The hands lifted the coat rack noiselessly off the ground. Silence. A quick step forward. a stuttering exhale, as though it took great effort. Then it sat back down, more silence. And then the coat rack hoisted upwards again, and another quick step forward. The slick sound of wet, bare feet pressed on and off against the concrete floor, another strained exhale, and they set it down. There was an almost hypnotizing, percussive rhythm to it, like a strange, dissonant song. Again, the coat rack hoisted up, and I'd seen more than enough. Twisting to my side, I clawed my hands onto the banister and hoisted myself upwards, wincing in pain as my snapped leg dragged uselessly behind me. More footsteps, more stuttering breaths. It was moving faster now, getting closer. I pulled myself forward, one tedious thrust at a time, gritting my teeth through the ever-rising pain. Fuck. Whoever was holding the coat rack was on the stairs now. I didn't look back. I couldn't look back. I kept pulling forward, inching closer and closer to escape. All the while, a terrible image burning into my head. The image of long, ever-stretching arms with the pig-colored skin, sliding up the stairs, reaching for my shins, inching closer and closer, until I gripped the doorframe with both hands and launched myself forward. Lurching into the upstairs, I spun around and kicked the door with my good leg. It slammed shut with satisfying finality. Foot on the door, catching my breath, I listened. Listened for the slightest movement below. Seconds went by, minutes. Nothing. My racing thoughts finally steadied. Close. Fucking call. Time to barricade the door.